So hello also from my side. I'm Nikola. I'm the co-founder from AtlasMerge. We found AtlasMerge in the year 2018. Before of that, I worked at an Atlassian partner since 2010 and have plenty of experience migrating and consolidating Jira, Confluence, and other Atlassian tools. I'll share my screen now. Good. So first of all, wait a second. So yeah, again, my contact details, this will come up later in the end again, if you want to contact me. Let's get started. So we have a lot to talk about and a limited amount of time. Nonetheless, I would want to start with some terminology just to be on the same page. Then talk a little bit about motivation on why to consolidate multiple Jira and Confluence instances at all. Then take a look at some challenges that you will encounter if you try to migrate your systems. Then I think one of the most important things is to think about your requirements. So what do I need? What is required so that my migration is successful? Then we'll talk about tools and methods. Then we have a short conclusion about tools and methods. And if there is some time, and I hope there will be some time, I can show you a small demo of AtlasMerge. Let's get started. So terminology. What is an instance? An instance is, for example, jiraexample.org or confluence.example.org, which is one environment. Doesn't matter if it's clustered or just on one server. That's one instance. You can have multiple instances connected to each other with application links. A migration is easy. You have instances and you want to get data from A to B. And consolidating stuff means that you have more than one instance, and in the end, you want to have just one. While consolidating stuff, you probably will also want to merge some of your data or entities in your systems, like if you have a status in Jira called to do with capital, well, written like here, capital first letters or all caps, and you want to rename it or merge it together to do. This would be called merging in the scope of this presentation. Also, there is mapping of entities. So for example, if you just want to change a name or ID during migration, you will probably need to do this because there may be ID conflicts or name conflicts. Yeah. Then some licensing terminology. When we talk about on-premise, we talk about systems running on your own hardware or running in AWS, Azure, or something like that. So often I hear customers talking about cloud migrations, but they still use on-premise licenses. Server was the old licensing model from Atlassian, where you only were allowed to run one cluster node. This was discontinued some time ago. I don't remember this year. Yeah, this year. Then there's data center, which is not discontinued. It's more expensive than server, but also runs on multiple nodes. And then there is the Atlassian Cloud, which is a cloud environment operated by Atlassian, but it does not run the same versions of Jira Confluence as you can run on premise. So there are a lot of differences between what you run on your own servers and what Atlassian runs for you. And then there's cloud migrations. When I talk about cloud migrations, I don't talk about going to AWS or Azure with data center, but about Atlassian cloud migrations. And this is also one thing I don't want to talk a lot about today. I have a slide in the end, because there's always a lot of questions concerning Atlassian Cloud migration, and we can do that in the Q&A session. But this is not the focus of this topic. Good. So why do you want, and why do we want to consolidate your Atlassian environments? First of all, reducing licensing costs. Having one server instance is cheap. Having 2 server instances is still cheap. Having one data center instance is not very cheap. Having multiple data center instances is quite expensive. You save money by not needing to license users multiple times. So if you have the same users in multiple systems, you can save money by having fewer users. The higher user tiers have lower costs per user. So this is also a way to reduce costs even when you have not a lot of overlap between your instances. But, and there's the but, apps need to be licensed on the highest user tier. So you probably will also need to pay more for your apps. Another reason to merge and consolidate your instances would be better collaborations. You can query your issues or spaces, Confluence spaces easier. You can do easier reporting. Yeah. And last but not least, you can also reduce operational costs. If you have multiple instances and multiple administrators, you have also multiple. So at least on premise, you have more infrastructure, and you could theoretically save on that. What are your challenges? So first of all, built-in migration features in the tools are minimalistic. There is no support for mapping or merging usually. If there is, it's only if there is some, it's only for parts of the stuff. There is lots of bugs. So as a partner, we were always called to customers when the normal import didn't work anymore, because there was like legacy data in there or just a bug in the system. Another challenge is that Jira and Confluence are extremely modular. Both imply some kind of entity model where they don't have normalized data in the database. Between the apps that you can get on Marketplace, and the system, the base system, there is no foreign keys, no referential integrity. And often configuration is just stored in text blobs or binary blobs even in the database. Also, if you want to consolidate systems, GQL or scripts cannot be migrated one-to-one, which means if you have in your GQL an ID or a custom field name, and during your migration you need to change these names, it's not enough to just copy stuff. So you either need to manually correct the references or have a tool do that for you. As I mentioned before, there's usually large Jira and Confluence instances have a lot of garbage data in there, meaning legacy apps or some errors during transactions that are still in the system but don't interrupt your day-to-day operations. So just carry them along and don't fix them. And import and export takes forever. Yeah, and it takes forever, and you need to do full backups of your systems to have reproducible runs of your import-export tests. Otherwise, you could import stuff and break stuff. I have a query somewhere, maybe in the Q&A session, we can take a look at the existing bugs. Here is one I like to show, which is a long-term backlog bug from Confluence, where Atlassian just says, yeah, space XML imports will probably not work because there may be unique key constraints or yeah, other issues. Good. So what do you need to do if you want to migrate or consolidate your data. First of all, there is no single way to migrate Atlassian tools. So it's very important to know what do you need and how good is good enough for you. Otherwise, you will need to work a lot harder than required. Let's go through some requirements you might have for Jira. I tried to create some kind of feature matrix or requirement matrix, which we will then use to take a look at the different options that you have. First of all, what do you need? What data do you need? Minimum data is like issue contents. So I'm here. Do you see the pointer? Yes. Okay, I'm here. So issue content, meaning summary, descriptions, most of the default custom fields, comments. This is issue content. So if you just need that, that's great. If you also need, for example, if you're a bank or an insurance company and you have compliance reasons and you need all your issue history and dates to do some research, what happened in the past, this would also be a kind of requirement that you could have. Then there's project configuration. Do you actually need to continue working with your existing configuration with this data, or is it, yeah, doesn't matter, it's just for archiving purposes, then maybe you don't need a project configuration. Then there's global configuration, like I don't know if you use advanced roadmaps for Jira, for example, there's like hierarchy levels that are defined once for the whole instance, or there's application links, webhooks, integrations, and stuff. So this exists only one time in an instance, and you probably have conflicts in these. User settings, like what language did the user have, which avatar was his, which filters did he recently view, and so on. And there's shared objects like filters and dashboards and boards, and stuff from add-ons. Yeah, and stuff from add-ons. It's a extra point here. Since app data is not part of the normal, or usually not always part of the normal Jira data, you need to consider which apps you want to have in your target environment and decide on what to do with it, or which quality you need, which kind of quality you need in the end of the app data. Then you need to decide what do you want to migrate, only a single project, multiple projects, maybe multiple instances, currently having a project with a client who is migrating 4 Jira instances at once. And probably, maybe also because you have some legal requirements, you don't want to migrate certain stuff like Betriebsrats, which is union stuff, or old archive projects, and you don't want to take them with you, or issues older than a certain date. This would be like filtered. And then we have mapping and merging, and this is usually the hardest part of any migration. Users. If you have a single Active Directory in your whole company, that's great. If your user identifiers match, if your email addresses match, then you probably won't have problems migrating your data. If you have multiple Active Directories or multiple usernames, then stuff gets tricky. If you have local users or mixed users, this is also very tricky. And what I'm talking about here is some kind of mechanism to merge otherwise unrelated users together, although they may have the same email address, or some kind of rules to make multiple users from multiple systems be the same user in the same system. Then there's custom fields. Custom fields are kind of special because there's custom field context in Jira, and there's certain system custom fields that only may exist once, like the epic link or SLAs in Jira Service Management, or tempo accounts. And you need to decide if you want to have multiple different custom field configurations, or you want to have that the same. If you have conflicting names, you probably want to rename one, and so on. Problem with renaming custom fields, and why you shouldn't do this normally in a Jira environment, is because you probably will break lots of GQL filters and dashboards, and you will create usually this creates havoc in the system. But during a migration, if you want users to just continue work like they did, you need to take care of these. The same is also true for issue types, statuses, resolutions, priorities, issue link types, and so on. I mentioned GQL queries already. This is what this is about. And we have dashboards, which every gadget has its own configuration, and apps also may provide own gadgets, and so on. Then there's Script Runner, a very popular add-on, or similar add-ons that allow you to script in Jira, meaning you type your code in there, and maybe in this code you reference custom field IDs or issue types or usernames. But if you migrate your data and you want to reuse those scripts, you need to replace all the mentions of issue types, usernames, statuses, and so on. And last but not least, we have your remote links. Remote links are from one instance to another system. Links like from Confluence to Jira, for example, or from Jira to Jira. And when we are talking about multiple Jira instances, you probably also have issue links between them. But you want to convert them to local links if you have only one environment. So because local links and remote links are not the same thing, and remote links onto the same system does not really work. Then there's operational considerations you need to think about, like performance. How long should the production run take? How long should each test run take? Am I allowed to have downtime? So to have a maintenance window in the weekend or night, or don't I? Can I really test the migration? Is it reproducible? Or is there a lot of input or manual input that may a lot of manual input that may change your outcome. Good. Let's start. No, we have Confluence requirements first. Most of the stuff is the same, but instead of issues, we have pages. We have page histories. We have space configuration, global configuration, user settings, and app data, which is basically the same. Then we have single space, multiple spaces, full instance, filter instance. It's the same. We have less stuff to merge in Confluence because Confluence is a simpler product. We have macros here, which I did not mention, but there's also Jira integration. So what happens if you have Confluence and Jira integrated, and in your Confluence page you use GQL or gadgets from Jira? You probably need to fix them also after consolidating your systems. Operational aspects are the same as for Jira. Let's start with the first and easiest way to get your data into Jira. So we are in tools and methods now. The first one is CSV import or JSON import. It's the easiest solution. The problem is you only can import issue data, no history. There is you need to take care of some encoding stuff, but it's very, it's easy to use. It works well. So if this is what if your requirements are not very high, it's a very good solution. There's also the JSON import. It's basically the same backend, but since JSON is structured, you can give it some additional data like issue history. The problem with JSON is that Jira does not export JSON directly. So you, or at least not in the format that is required. So you need to transform JSON and have to do some programming to do that. For Jira CSV import, you can just use the normal export to CSV from the Jira search, and you are very fast to do that. When we take a look at our requirements for the CSV import, you can just import your issue content. Also, issue history and dates will not be there or not correct. There's stuff like the author field, which is not visible from the UI, that also is not changeable through CSV import. But you can import basically a lot of stuff from the same instance. You can also map project keys, so that's fine. By using GQL for creating the CSV, you can also filter. There is some mapping and merging possible for custom fields for some issue types. That's why I gave it a green dot, a check mark. Users, there is no real good support for user merging, so you have to just manually merge them. But there is definitely no support for GQL, dashboards, scripts, remote links. Performance is okay, so it takes some time. It reindexes everything. You don't need downtime for that. That's great. But you probably will have some work to do to create all the exports. You need to be there to click the import. You cannot do very large CSV imports at once because your system will crash. So you have to be careful a little bit. But costs are great, it's free. So built in. And for JSON, the only difference is basically that you can add history and dates. So the next thing is the Jira project import. Jira has it built in. You take a backup file, you select the project, you go through some steps, then you import it and you're done. The problem here is you don't get any configuration here. So yeah, the next tools and methods will fix that. Also, the last time I did it, which is a long time ago, it was only a single project at once. This may have changed. And there is theoretically an API that I don't know anyone of that supports it to also migrate some app data in here. So this is very theoretical. Good. So we still have a lot missing here: project configuration, global configuration, app data. Yeah, it's very theoretically possible, but not easy. I think only a single project. There is some mapping here, but also no support for GQL, dashboards, scripts, and so on. Performance is quite similar to CSV import. It's also zero time. And yeah, you have manual labor. You need to create the configuration by hand. But also it's free. Next, we are at the commercial solutions. Adaptavist project configurator. I think it was the first tool on the marketplace that was available and helped you to basically migrate configuration from one system to another. In the background, it uses Jira Java API and Jira project import, so the thing we saw before to use to import the issue data. Its main use case is basically transferring configuration between environments, like you have a staging environment or development environment or testing environment, and you prepare the configuration there and you want to get it into the other system. But it's also can be used to migrate whole systems or a lot of projects. It can migrate dashboards, it can migrate boards. It has support for Jira service management, meaning request types, queues, and so on. Your search queries will be there. Some app support is there, like I think 20 plugins or something like that. So it's a lot better than using the project import or the CSV import feature-wise, which we'll also see here. So first of all, the big plus is we have project configuration. I'm not sure how much of the global configuration we can get. I don't think it's a lot. It's a long time I haven't used it. But you don't get user settings. You get shared objects like boards. You get some app data. And since you can export the whole instance, I also gave it like a exclamation mark here. You can migrate multiple instances with it. There is some support for user mapping, for custom field mapping. Also some support for issue type status resolutions. Adaptavist, which is also the creator of Script Runner, also have script support here. So part of the global configuration that you can get is from Script Runner. So you can get your scripts from one system to the other system, but it does not modify your scripts or fix your scripts for you between environments. Performance, yeah, for big stuff, it takes a long time. You don't need downtime. Oh, this is wrong. So here should be a check mark. You don't need downtime for that. Manual labor, you still have to click through all the wizards and stuff. It's not super easy. You have to pay for it. And also, so part of our projects as partners was always to modify the exports and create additional tools for user migration, for example, or preparation for certain custom fields to change the backups so that the project importer worked as intended. Next, we have Botron Configuration Manager, which is, from its concepts, it's very similar to Project Configurator, but there's global configuration snapshots. So there's a little bit more than Project Configurator does. And there's a second add-on on the marketplace called the Power Admin from Botron, which allows you to prepare your data basically prepare your data, like renaming custom fields and fixing GQL and stuff. And there's also a apps API, SPI, service provider interface, meaning that marketplace app authors can add support to their apps to be migrated, but you still need app vendor support for that. I think Botron has more, I haven't counted them recently, but they have definitely more support from the community than Adaptavist. Also, if I personally had to choose between the two, I would probably choose the configuration manager, since it has its own issue import engine and it doesn't rely on the Atlassian one. And I personally like the usability a little bit more from from configuration manager. Good. Here we have quite similar to configuration manager, the results. We can take our project configuration, which is the key feature of the tool. You can take most of the global configuration, or at least the global configuration where some kind of API for that. We have shared objects. We have app data support, which is, I think, better than from Adaptavist. We also have the possibility to merge or to migrate the whole instance. That's why I have an exclamation mark in scope. But otherwise, it's basically the same thing. Also here, zero downtime should be a check mark. I'm sorry. Okay, so if all the solutions you saw until now were not enough, you start thinking. Or maybe you can get 99% of what is required from configuration manager, but you still need something more. And therefore you need to do some development. You need to create some custom scripts. And of course, Atlassian tools have an API. And the Java and REST API are very extensive. The problem is that only a small part is public and documented. But nonetheless, you got source code with your license. So you can go to myatlassian.com, download the source code and reverse engineer a little bit to get your data that you need, and write your scripts to import. A small problem with that is Atlassian does not give development support. They support the API, that the API is correct, but they won't really help you develop stuff. Access to app data is hard. And basically, yeah, if you haven't been working at an Atlassian partner for a long time or creating Atlassian apps for a long time, you will have a very hard time doing this. But you get all the benefits. You can migrate basically everything. I still gave it a stop sign here for app data. But with enough effort, you could probably fix that. You can do all the mapping and merging you like. It will be very hard, but you can do it. Performance depends on how you do it, will be great or not great. No, I'm sorry, API. Performance will be not great because API is very slow. But you will have zero downtime. You will have lots of stuff to do, and you will have large costs to create your own scripts and test your own scripts, unless it's only a very small part that you need to do. So there's another way. Everybody knows the backup from Jira, which is basically a zip file with 2 XML files in there. And everybody knows databases and its SQL. The XML files basically just contains a serialized database, meaning for every row that is in the database, there is one entity in XML files, which means you have complete access to all data, and there's nothing the system can hide from you, which is, from a migration perspective, great. But warning, breaking stuff is easy. There is no such thing as referential integrity in Jira. XML import does few checks. It's basically just an SQL import. You also don't get support from Atlassian. And if you go on community@atlassian.com or ask anyone, everybody will say, don't touch the database unless Atlassian support tells you to do so. And there's a reason for that, because it's complicated and tricky and, yeah, hard. Also, documentation does not exist. So everything is kind of reverse engineering. Yeah, that's the way it is. A common method I see people use is string replace on the XML file. Like, you have your username and the username changes, and for the migration you want to change the username, then they just do a string replace in the XML file, which works 99% or 80% of the time. But the usernames also exist in like JSON or encoded stuff or GQL or in binary format in the system, and you cannot modify them using the string replace. Also, if you have usernames or stuff that's very generic, like my last name, which is ILO, and you replace ILO in the whole system, you probably will break lots of stuff. So it can be done, but you need to thoroughly test if you do that. And it doesn't matter if you modify the backups created by scripts, not script runner, project configurator or configuration manager or just a normal Jira export. This applies to every one of them. Maybe a small hint here. If you try to do this, ensure that your application and apps are in the same version, because between version changes, vendors may trigger data transformations and you will not be able to match and merge the data otherwise. Good. So the last method we have here today, which is AtlasMerge. Maybe I'll talk a little bit. No, sorry. Same here as for XML, but you have full app data access to here. You don't need APIs. So AtlasMerge. What is AtlasMerge? AtlasMerge is not something like Project Configurator or Configuration Manager. It's not an app you can install and export and import stuff with a user interface. It's a tool that was developed based on the experience with API and SQL XML import, export consolidations that we did as a partner then. So since we had this experience and we were very frustrated with the results we were getting with the other tools, or our customers were frustrated and we were frustrated because we could not realize the stuff for our clients, AtlasMerge is basically the result of many years of experience in that. And it's not about exporting single projects or single configurations. It's about merging whole instances. You can use it also to just import one project from one system to another, but the main use case was always big data, many projects, lots of configuration, thousands of users, millions of issues. Yeah. What we also can do by not running in application is taking care of references between applications. So if you have GQL and Confluence and you migrate or consolidate Jira and Confluence at the same time, we can also fix that for you. Focus was always mapping and merging of entities, meaning in one system, this is this way, in the other, it's that way. We want to have a result that works for both. Focus was always performance, because if you have millions of issues, I have customers that don't save on hardware and where reindexes in Jira take over 24 hours. Reproducibility. So if you work with migrations and you test something and then you do it again, you want it to be exactly the same thing. You don't want to have manual mistakes in there. You don't want to have differences from what you tested, what got signed off during user acceptance testing. So this was a very important feature for us. And we have a single configuration file, which you can put in your in your source code manager like Git, source control system, and know exactly what changed from the last test run to this one, and be sure that you get working results. The problem is, do it yourself. It's still very complicated. You have many settings to make. You have many decisions to make. So do it yourself is only possible for simple setups, usually, unless you have lots of Atlassian experience. Otherwise, we recommend professional services. We work with Atlassian partners, either white label or not. And you can also work directly with us if you don't have an Atlassian partner, but we prefer working with your Atlassian partner if you have one. Since there's Atlassian partners in here, you may contact me. We have a partner program. And yeah, let's talk. And of course, this slide is a little bit biased because the features we put in here, we implemented because it was requirements for us, and we completed all of that. So let's not focus on the check marks. Let's focus on the problems we have. App data. there's lots of marketplace plugins. We don't have a check mark here because we still need to do some development for apps. The difference is that you have a single point of contact. We don't need the app vendors to support their app. We support them without them. So there's no one we can blame for not being able to deliver. What happens if you work with, I don't know, Atlassian support or another support is as soon as they see, oh, it's an app, it's their problem, it's your problem. And yeah, this leads to delays. You won't have that with AtlasMerge because we take full responsibility also for app data. It's an offline procedure. So you will need to shut down your systems. We are very fast in migrating and getting it up again, but you still need to shut down the system and reindex once. Yeah, manual labor, you still have to do stuff to configure things. So we have a like 80% solution that we can start and you get a running system, but it's probably not what you want. And to get what you want, so fix user mappings, custom fields, app data, you will need some workshops together or with your partner to get the configuration right. And cost of course, it's not free. That's why we have an exclamation mark here. So, conclusion. I know I promised a decision tree, but I tried it and it didn't fit on slides. So I did a very simplified decision tree here. The most important thing is know your requirements, talk to your users, talk to your administrators. There's often also political problems with if there's 2 Jira instances, you need to clear that up before starting a project. If you just need a CSV import, use it. It's the fastest thing. You can't destroy lots of things. It's supported by Atlassian, although there are bugs, but most of the bugs, there are some kind of workarounds. Keep it simple. If it's possible for you, use it. If you either have these tools, one of these tools, or only need to migrate few projects, or just a project configuration, then use Botron Configuration Manager or Adaptavist Project Configurator. I think I told you before, I personally like the Configuration Manager more, but just try them, get a trial license. It's free for 30 days. But if you have multiple instances and lots of data and lots of users, or need advanced merging, or need Confluence integration, then yeah, come to us. Let's talk. Because we have limited time today, I did not do the same thing for Confluence, but Confluence is simpler. Confluence has space import, and space import works most of the times, unless you have like a bug or a broken import, then it will not work anymore. The difference between Confluence and Jira is that Confluence has better IDs that usually don't conflict. So links don't break and most of the macros don't break. So space import is a great thing. If you need to migrate spaces often, there's also an add-on or app from K15T, which is based, I think, on scroll versions, where you can publish spaces to other instances. So they automate that for you. And here again, if you have many spaces or need advanced merging, and with advanced merging, I'm thinking of stuff like, I don't know if you know Linchpin intranet or something like that. Some lots of app data that you want to keep, or you want to, or you use your Jira integration extensively and want everything to continue to work, then use AtlasMerge for Jira. Yeah, I promised you the Atlassian Cloud slide. This is a moving topic. So what I'm telling you today may not be true tomorrow. This is just my conclusion for Atlassian Cloud. If you have just a one-to-one migration or end-to-one migration and don't have lots of requirements, just use the Atlassian Cloud migration tool. Since the apps that exist in cloud usually have a different data model, there is no way to get a perfect import into cloud. So yeah, forget that. You will need to compromise here, and the Atlassian Cloud migration tool will probably do most of the stuff. If you have high requirements, like what is high requirements? 1 year ago, I think in September, Atlassian released issue history import for Jira Cloud. So 1 year before, it was the issue history that you could not import. Right now, it's like Jira service management, where there is no support for that. If this is the case, do a site import, which is basically dump your or create a backup of your server or data center, upload it to Atlassian, start a conversion process, and it will be done. There are tools, I think both Botron and Adaptavist have or will release in the near future apps to transfer configurations to cloud. But there's, because the products are not the same, there's also some kind of conceptual mismatch here. So also these tools won't work as perfectly as they do on server, or cannot work. Yeah. Otherwise, also the REST API is a lot more limited than the REST API of cloud is better than on server, but it's still a lot more limited than the Java API on server or on premise. So the tool vendors cannot create better migration tools. If you need to end-to-one migration to cloud, meaning you have multiple server or cloud instances, and you want to get it to one Atlassian Cloud instance, then the solution is to export everything to server, merge everything on server or on premise, and then do the site import. There's currently no other way to do this other than, so if you want to keep most of the stuff. Good. Also, I'm not doing lots of cloud migrations, so maybe something changed here. Go ask your partner. Again, my contact details, and we have 15 minutes left, I think. I would like to show a very short demo. I'm slightly over time. Is it okay?
Sure, you have.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go on. Go ahead.
Good. So I have two Jira environments. Jira 1 AtlasMerge.com, Jira 2 AtlasMerge.com. Still, since we have little time, I will not look into them. Or let's try this. But we have a third one, which is Jira Target 1, which is starting right now because I just did a migration. So AtlasMerge is a command line tool. So you can run it on Windows or Linux. You have a configuration file. So I'm just starting it with bin AtlasMerge -c configuration file. And then everything is automated. As an input, you can have XML backups. So we can read backup files. We can read directly from the database. All kinds of databases that's Jira or Confluence support. And we write directly to the database. So in this case, we shut down Jira, do an analyze run, so read everything from the source systems, do a second run, copy all the stuff, then copy attachments, then start Jira again, then reindex, and everything is happening here in the background. So right now it's waiting for login, for Jira to come up again. And we will log into this one. Okay, while it's loading, maybe I can show you what script mapping looks like with AtlasMerge. So this could be a script that you have in Script Runner. And here you have like a custom field object that's referenced by ID in your system. You can mark up or create annotate these mentions of IDs or names. In this case, for example, let's say this is an issue type ID. Then during migration, this ID will be replaced with the new ID in the new system. So when running AtlasMerge, it exports all scripts from everywhere, Script Runner and other apps, creates a directory for you, and you can go through your scripts and annotate the changes or the IDs and names that you want to change during the migration. And when the migration actually runs, replace the scripts in the system for you so that you can rerun and test everything often. And don't need to know the ID or name in advance because that may change during migration. Okay, Jira is still starting. No, it's already started. These are evaluation licenses. So we can see, for example, in our projects, we have the setting to prefix every project name with the source environment, in this case, Jira 1 or Jira 2. We have the same thing with workflows. Yeah. In this case, we have them marked as Jira 1 and Jira 2. Only when there is conflict. Here, these were unique, so we didn't need to create a prefix. And the configuration file looks like this. So you define where you are migrating or where you want your results to be, where you want your sources to be. You can add additional modules like for plugins or for special merging strategies. And here we have the entity type configuration. In this case, for projects, we want all projects to have a prefix, which we saw in in the results. And we also did something here. We renamed the project key from Jira 1 from Scrum to Scrummy. And basically, this is also what happened here. The project key is Scrummy, and in Jira 1, it is Scrum, like you can see here. That's it. Thank you, and I'm open for questions now.